Welcome to Read My Lips. In this episode, I am joined by the wonderful Tina MacNaughton. It's fantastic to have you in the studio. Super pleased to talk about you and your book. So just quickly before we go in there, just give the audience like a quick sort of introduction to yourself, and then we'll go into your writing.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. So my name's Tina MacNaughton. I'm from Portsmouth originally. I'm an acupuncturist and a writer. I'm married to Andy and I have 3 boys and 3 grandsons. I'm a massive reader and I just write as much as I can, and I just think it's helped me cope better with life and enjoy life more, really.
Fantastic. And it's a lot of work, isn't it? I mean, I think, every time I'm, in the studio, I tell people about the journey that it kind of takes you on when you started, all the things you learn. But just so that everybody obviously knows, obviously you mentioned, and this is where I am slightly intrigued as well, a little bit off topic, but you mentioned that obviously you are an acupuncturist.
Yes. Yeah.
How did you kind of start that journey? I mean, I'm a big fan. I think acupuncture is just such a... if people are slightly skeptical, I really do think they should go ahead and go through that kind of journey. But tell me about how you kind of got into it and, what you enjoy about it and so on.
I think I was never particularly well. I was quite a sickly child, and I sort of had all sorts of little problems, I suppose, as a teenager and growing up. Always had a bit of a tummy ache and sort of other things going on. So I just got chatting to someone in the playground, and she said her acupuncturist was coming round and she swore by it. So I started having it and it really helped me. So by my 30s, I was actually really healthy and felt so much better. So I knew it worked. And got to about 40, sort of thought, what should I do with the rest of my life? And decided to train. So that's where it came from. So this is my 17th year of practice.
Wow. So you stuck with it. It was,
really love it.
Yeah. I know we were having a little chat beforehand as well. How many years did you say it had taken you to obviously train?
It takes nearly 4 years to train now. So it's not full time. I think you can do it full time now. But that was... part-time, it was a lot. We were in most weekends, all weekend, plus there's point location, all sorts of other things to do. But you're sticking needles in people, so you should be well qualified, really.
I know. I mean, again, I know we were having this discussion earlier, but they are quite small needles, aren't they? They're very
tiny needles, nothing to be afraid of. And I'm personally a very gentle acupuncturist.
So definitely. So if you're thinking of acupuncture, definitely speak to Tina. So I mean, also, was that something that kind of spurred you into writing as well? Or, was it completely different? Is it kind of like an escape mechanism from work and obviously...
I have written a few pieces about acupuncture and for acupuncture, actually. So there is a tie-in. And there are different types of acupuncturists. Some of them are very technical and kind of logical. They used to be doctors, chiropractors. I'm more on the creative side of acupuncture, and there is room to be creative with diagnosis and with points, which is interesting. The writing came first for me. So I've been writing since I was little. I was a massive reader as a child. My first piece of published work was a poem about trees when I was 8 in the Portsmouth Evening News.
Lovely.
But I've very much dipped in and out of my writing. So sometimes I've been writing the whole time, and other times I haven't written for 5 years properly. But then I did go back to uni, and I've sort of done several degrees. So I did lots of writing then. So I think I didn't really have the time and space to do the more creative stuff. I think my 50s really freed me up to write better, and properly, and take it really seriously. And a lot of it was putting aside the fear of failure and waiting for other people to recognise and publish me. I just thought, I'm just going to do this myself, actually. So I published a book of poetry, and it all stemmed from there, basically.
I think, you find so many of especially the well-known authors, nearly all of them started sort of late 30s, 40s, 50s. But I think it's that life experience, all of the things, the emotion, the dramas, everything else that you can pull into a book way better than you could, obviously, if you were a lot younger. So definitely. I definitely agree. Kind of as you've got, older, you have that experience and that knowledge. And I think also, as you mentioned, you have that sort of encouragement to go, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I think you're more sure of yourself, and you just say, I've got something to say and I'm going to say it. So you forget about being good or making money out of it or being famous. You're just saying, I want to write and get my stuff out there, and you just do it. And I think once you do that, and you have to have some ability, I would say.
Yeah.
But things just snowball when people start recognizing your work. I think some of it is confidence, actually. And if you're confident about yourself, people will start listening, thinking, oh, okay. Yeah, she's saying something.
And I think sometimes it also helps create the writing. Sometimes, you said obviously you've been writing for many, many years, but there'll be points in your life where you have a certain break where you think, well, actually, I have the time and the patience, or I've just gone through something, I want to put that into my writing. So again, I think it's something that you can stop and start quite nicely without, it's something that you can pick up again when you feel like you're ready to do it.
Yeah, I'm not a writer who writes every day at all. I can go ages without writing, then I'm suddenly writing the whole time. I would say with me, COVID, really, that's when I really started writing, because I couldn't work. And I thought, oh, what am I going to do with myself? And I suddenly had time and space and a blank diary. And I do think you do need space to write. It's amazing what comes out when you've got that space.
I think there must have been so many authors, wasn't there, that were born from kind of COVID times where they thought, I've actually got the ability now to sit down and really concentrate on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think it's lovely. So tell me a little bit about, obviously, going back. You mentioned, obviously, you came from Portsmouth. And what brought you to sort of more Berkshire, Crowthorne way?
Well, I was in Portsmouth until I did my A-levels, went to Manchester for a couple of years to go to college, and came back to Portsmouth just for a couple of years, met my husband. We had twin sons. And he got another job, and we basically went because he got another job. So we went to South Wales, had another son there. So we were there for about 6 years. Then he got a different job. So we moved up towards London. And we've been here for about 30 years. We went from Bracknell to Finchampstead, now in Crowthorne.
Oh, no.
So,
it's a lovely village. I've got to admit, it's a lovely
place, village outside of Crowthorne, definitely, yeah.
So just really quickly, before we go into your book, and I'm super excited to go through that, but I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Who would be your favourite author in the entire world? Who would you pick?
It's really, really hard for me. So I can't say one. I just can't.
Normally people have a few, don't they?
Can't,
one, but
I'd say classics. It's got it. Well, Shakespeare. I did my masters in Shakespeare, so know him quite well. And the Brontes and Austen, all the usual, really.
Any particular Shakespeare one?
My favourite is King Lear. Yeah, and I like the sonnets as well. Second, Romeo and Juliet. I'm a bit of a romantic at heart. I would say I'm very fond of Elizabeth Strout, the New England writer. I love her stories, her books. And I also am a fan of Colm Tóibín, the Irish writer. I love his style. Wish I could write like him. And who else do I really like? Oh, The Colour Purple, Alice Walker. That's one of my favourite books.
I've seen quite a few of hers. They're really good. And I think people get really bought into her stories as well. So
quite a story.
I would definitely agree with that one.
Yeah.
And if you're on a desert island, which author would you take with you? I've had some very funny ones. But which author would you take with you?
Well, my dream now is I would love to write a play and have it performed, put on properly. So I would probably take Carol Churchill, who's a fantastic playwright, and then she can teach me how to do it. So that's who I would take.
Yeah, and then you could obviously structure it all and talk about it whilst you're on the island. I love that. I think that's fantastic. So obviously you mentioned about your writing journey and obviously what drew you in. I think for me, we've had a lot of authors who've spoken about the books that they've written. We've not had poetry yet. So what kind of spurred you into writing and producing poetry? And I'll go into the other.
Yeah. I think I love a project and I love a short project because my attention span isn't that great and I like to move on. And I think the thing with a novel is, writing a novel is one thing. You've written several, but it's all the other stuff, all the editing, and it just, it's such hard work. It really is. Yeah. And I've started a few novels that have gone nowhere, and that's quite disheartening when you're 3/4 of the way through and it's going nowhere, and you think,
how do I finish it? How do I?
It's got no life, and that's it. So at least for Downfrey Rose, I could see an end to it. I got all the way through it, and I really enjoyed writing it. But I'm not sure I'm going to write another novel. I'm much more short stories, poetry sort of girl, really. And I think because if it's rubbish, you just spin it basically, and it's taking you half an hour. I like doing quite short things. Yeah. And I do love poetry anyway. I love I love the way that you can say so much in so few words, really. I love writing to form as well, I think.
And I think poetry as well have to be very talented, I think, with poetry, because you're really trying to engage people in such a short space of time. And I personally feel a lot of the time poetry has a lot more meaning, because people are saying, well, what were you trying to write? What were you trying to relay to people? And it is such a kind of a short piece of text, whereas novels, again, I think sometimes people will read a chapter at a time and then they'll come back to it, and then sometimes they're not fully bought in, or they are. So I love the fact that obviously, you're kind of going into the poetry piece, but also I think when people produce books, you're also having to write quite a few pieces of poetry to form that book as well. I love it. Was there anything specifically that inspired you to that kind of piece, or was it just naturally your sort of form of writing?
To write poetry?
Yeah.
I think, again, it's just, you can say a lot in if you haven't got much time. So I was writing when my kids were very small, so 3 young children. It's easy to write a quick poem than it is a novel. So I think it was part of that. But again, it's the beauty of the form and saying a lot in few words, I think I like.
Fantastic. And we've got, I won't spoil it, but Lucas Jones we're going to go into later on in the episode. But again, lots and lots of, I suppose, more modern poetry that he started writing about. So very well in kept with the theme. I also listened to your feature on the radio, and it's not just obviously been one. You've had a couple of features on different radio stations.
Yeah.
Do you find that nerve-wracking at all? I know obviously we're in the studio today, but some people are absolutely petrified, but then once they go in, they think, oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Radio, I've done a couple now, and it's literally a couple of minutes and you're in, you've got to do it, and then you're kind of out again. How did you kind of find?
I think radio is easier because no one can see you, so you don't have to worry about, is my hair looking all right? Like that. I think that one was a funny one because I just published the poetry collection. And I put a little piece in Wokenham today, self-promoting. And I just got a text saying, oh, Tina, would you like to come on BBC Berkshire? And obviously, I'd only just really got my writing out there. So it was sort of a bit of a surprise and a shock. And in the end, on the day, I got a phone call about 7 o'clock in the morning. It was really early. And I was in my pajamas, and he sort of said, oh, can you come on now? We've got to change. And I went, yeah, okay, like that, because I do like getting things done. So you don't get so nervous. So nobody knows I actually sat in my pajamas doing it, and it was fine. I quite enjoyed doing it.
Oh, that's really well. That was the beauty of, again, in COVID, when obviously a lot of thoughts and bits and pieces. I think people were generally smart top half, and then the bottom half. We won't go there. And also, obviously, you've had quite a few publications as well. Tell me about obviously the publications that, and even competitions that you've appeared in as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I've been quite lucky actually the last few years. So I'm pretty widely published now in quite a few journals and anthologies. I won first prize in a short story competition. It's an environmental group, Pens of the Earth, based down in Portsmouth. They like to have a positive spin on what we can do with the challenges of climate change. So my short story Voices won first prize. I was pleased about that.
That's fantastic.
I've been short and long listed quite a few times by Hedgehog Poetry Press, and I've been in some of their anthologies. I was commended by Articulation. I won a prize for a US competition, a poem called Winter's Sigh. That was quite a few years ago now. What else have I done?
Brilliant. Recently, I'm really proud.
Well, recently, quite a few of us, 100 poems, including 3 of mine, are on buses zooming all around Portsmouth. That was a sort of an arts project. That's quite nice. Yeah. So
must be surreal to kind of see, certain things, but featuring. You think, oh, I wrote that. All right.
It's really nice. It's really a privilege for someone, because we all have lots of rejections, don't we? Let's face it. And I'm always really honest about that. And that's quite disheartening. But I always say to people, just keep going, and you will get somewhere. And also accept whatever level of acknowledgement you get. It doesn't have to be, really big or really massive. Getting a poem in Wokenham Today or a local magazine, it just gets your stuff out there and helps you to share your words and your story. But it's a huge privilege when someone else says, I really love your work and you're going to publish it. Yay.
And they've read it, and haven't they? And
it makes you feel really good as a writer.
So there's really a good word of encouragement there. So if you're writing, whether it's poetry, whether it's stories, whatever it is, Definitely. It's kind of the encouragement, isn't it? And the support to say, right, I'm going to continue.
Definitely. And also I talk about ability, but don't forget it's very subjective. I mean, someone may absolutely hate my work and someone else may love it. We've all got our own tastes, haven't we? So don't be put off because someone says, oh, it's not very good, really. Yeah. It may well be. It's just the wrong person or a different person is reading it.
Definitely. And even the top, I mean, for many, many years, I looked at, obviously, again, all the top authors on Goodreads and BookBub and even Amazon, and some of those best-selling authors get 1-star reviews. They can't please everybody, but everybody's going to like it. It's the same with films. It could be the best film in the world, and people go, I wasn't a big fan of that. Personal preference. But I think what doesn't help a lot of the time is authors spend so much time and passion and emotion and hard work to create something that it's when people say you're a rubbish author, you're not a rubbish author, it just makes it fun for you. That
I think also hone your craft. I mean, practice you get better at anything, if you keep going. And some people will always be naturally better writers, but often it's not the best writer that gets through. That's down to who connections, branding, money, and lots of other things. But I think if you're good, you will get through at some level. You will get recognition.
You get recognised eventually, don't you?
Definitely, exactly. But write for yourself more than anything, I would say.
Yeah, personal development, isn't it?
Yes.
So on that note, where do you see yourself and your writing in the next sort of 2, 3, 5 years onwards, really?
I think I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, really, and just putting stuff out there.
It's definitely worked.
Hoping to get published. I do a lot of open mic. I read poems at Victoria's Music Festival, for example. That's always really good fun. And you get to meet loads of really interesting people. Keep doing that. I would like to write that play. So that's my little ambition, the next thing, I think. I don't think I'm going to write a novel, but never say never. And I think there will definitely be a collection of poetry coming out at some point. But I really want to make sure I've got to where I want to be before I put that out.
Brilliant. So we may see you at the theatre soon, or obviously written by,
or in some dusty somewhere, putting on my own production.
No, I look forward to it. I definitely remember that. So first, and obviously more excitingly, tell me about Delphi Rose, your novel, and then we'll kind of go into the poetry.
Okay. So Delphi Rose, I wanted to write a novel so much, but I never seemed to get it right, never seemed to have the right story. And it took me, as I said, to my 50s before I had the germ of an idea. And it came to me in Cambridge. Massive fan of 80s music. That was my time. So I wanted to write a novel with a music background. The central character was going to be a woman, and it was probably going to be a woman's journey through life. So Delphi is actually my nan's sister was called Delphinium or something, so she was always called Delphi, so I always thought it was a nice name. So Delphi comes from that. It's not a true story, but it is written in the first person, and it's a dual narrative, so it swings between Delphi at 38 when we meet her as a special needs teacher, and her younger self when she was a singer-songwriter in a punk band or post-punk band in a seaside town. So there's all sorts of shenanigans, a bit like I really enjoyed Roddy Doyle's The Commitments. So all sorts of shenanigans with the band and all the fallings out and, people going out with someone then they're not, that kind of thing. But key to it is right at the start of the novel, she bumps into Ben, who was also in the band. Ben is married, unhappily. Delphi's single. They probably should have got together and never did. And they do get together, but it's a really toxic relationship. And she spends most of the novel trying to get out of it. It's unusual in that most of the chapters begin with a song or a poem, which I wrote. And that's because she was a singer-songwriter, and it's kind of charting her emotional journey. There's been some trauma, significant trauma in Delphi's life. And we don't know, what's the thing with Ben, but he's actually key to this trauma. He doesn't know it himself. In fact, they both have secrets, and they don't come out until the end of the novel. He is given a voice. He's allowed to write a letter. I gave him a chapter so he can kind of explain his own situation, because I think that's important rather than it's all his fault, because it wasn't. And it ends with the final song. there is a happy ending, but not in the usual romantic sense. She doesn't need to find a man to be happy. I'll put it that way. So yeah, I really enjoyed writing it. It's not a great serious tome. You can read it in 3 days on the beach. It's a accessible kind of chick lit type of novel, but with a bit more depth to it, I think.
Yeah. I love it. I think the story, the whole kind of storyline, the piece to it is brilliant. And equally, you don't find a lot of that where you obviously said, each chapter starts with, a piece of music or poetry or something.
Yeah.
There's an added piece in there, which again, I think a lot of people who write novels wouldn't be able to add that piece to it. So I love the fact that you've kind of woven that in as well.
I think that was the poet in me that had to do that. But also, it was never going to be a big commercial seller. It's not that sort of book. And sometimes people find that
it could be the next, film adaptation.
I'd love to see it in a drama because I think it's got all the stuff for it. So that might be something I try to push. But obviously we know that's very difficult to achieve. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure Emily Henry would have, been saying this a few years ago before hers kind of switched over. But I like you say, I quite like the fact that also you've got twists and turns and certain things going on behind the scenes for her as well. And you don't think there'll be another Delphi Rose that'll be in the future? Or?
I think I've kind of done it, really. I think, she's had a happy ending. I don't think I've got anything more to say about that. So I think if I do write another novel, and never say never, it would be something totally different, probably crime or something. I'd really challenge myself.
So it's great. I think it's great to push yourself and then kind of say, well, I want to try this. And sometimes, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at least that's where you're genre relate. I love that.
But I'm the sort of person, if once I've done something and I've done it to an okay standard, I move on. I don't want to keep redoing the same things. I've proved my point. Do something new.
Yeah. I love that attitude. I think that's fantastic. What you also didn't mention as well is that I noted that you've also written 3 children's books as well. Tell me about those.
Well, that started in COVID, actually. So I wrote a long poem, a children's poem. And it was just before Christmas when were we going to lock down, weren't we? Dreadful, dreadful time. And I think I had a dream. I do sometimes dream little stories and poems. Yeah. And I had an idea that COVID wasn't a virus. It was horrible little goblins that had come down and just spread all this sort of pestilence. And it had happened before, the plague. And the only way to get rid of them was for the Christmas elves to sing at the tops of their voices really shrilly so that the goblins just were erased from the planet. So I had this wacky idea and wrote it all out, read it to my husband, and he said, that's actually quite good. I think that could be a children's book. So it was like 6 weeks before Christmas. So I got my friend to do a few illustrations, popped it down to the local printers and made a little book. And I had a short print run and sold it all through social media. So it did really well, actually. And on Christmas Eve, I blew up all the pages with the illustrations, laminated them, and I put them outside my house on the fence with fairy lights. Oh. So it was like a community thing. So if you couldn't have bought the book, because there weren't that many of them, it was a limited edition, you could come by and read it. And it was lovely to see people doing that. And people even knocked on the door and said, oh, thank you. That's joy to my life, which was really nice.
So have you put them into actual publication now, or was that
I just did my short run. There's one with the British Library, and that's it, basically. I've got a couple at home, not many. And then I did it wasn't really a sequel, but it was about Father Christmas oversleeping and not getting up. So we did that one. And then year before last, I wrote to my son, Michael, who's a really talented artist, illustrator. He's a graphic designer, and he did all the illustrations for me. So we did a sort of mum-son collaboration, which I really loved doing because he works away at the moment. So it gave us...
I think you're on something there. I feel like that's kind of like a mother-son kind of really good team that you could... continue writing some children's books.
Could do. I'm really an adult. I'm not really a children's author. I just happen to have done a few. I have got an idea for this year that I'll probably do. But Mike does all my covers. So any sort of illustrations Mike would do for me.
Yeah, that's lovely.
And this is Christmas socks. I mean, he just did it absolutely beautifully. So, so I'm very lucky to have
definitely to take the family. I think that's lovely.
Yeah.
So maybe this Christmas. I know we've kind of missed it again just now, but maybe again this Christmas, maybe.
I've got an idea. Yeah, I've got an idea for this year. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And like you say, I love the fact that, especially family involvement in things that you're doing, when they are supportive and they're really kind of behind you, I think it's
nice.
So important.
Yeah,
it's lovely.
Nice, yeah.
So moving on to poetry, which, by the way, just to let you know, I had a quick look at your website as well, and I noticed that you also commission poetry, which I thought was as a lovely, lovely way. So tell me a little bit more about the kind of poetry side.
So I've always written poems for friends and family for special events. And when my son got married, I actually did a booklet. He had a very small wedding because of COVID. And I made it into a book for the guests. So everyone had a gift, a wedding gift, and I read it out. So it's a bit of an extension of what I normally do. But yeah, so people will jot me down a few ideas about someone's life story, quirky details, and then I do a celebration poem. I've done one for someone who reached 100. That was quite a nice one.
Wow.
So yeah, just special events really. Yeah. It's something different, isn't it, really, a framed poem.
I'd seen the keeps popping up on social media where the people are in a car and they hear.
I've got one of those. Got Jay from In Between Us for my 60th. It's absolutely hilarious.
I mean, poetry, I think that's a lovely way to, again, have somebody like yourself really put those few words into an actual meaningful poem and give it to somebody. So I think that's fantastic.
But lots of people do, people write cards and they write nice things and testimonies at funerals, testimonials at funerals, that kind of thing. But I can also write very, very quickly. So, and I think it's funny because my son, who's the artist, he can draw just like magic. He just goes, and it's done. I couldn't do that. So I think certain people have things that they can do. Yeah. And I think one of mine is you can give me a few ideas and I go, yeah, there you go, like that. And I can write that fairly quickly. And you sort of assume that everyone can do that, but they can't, which is why people would pay someone like me to do it. Yeah. So that's a nice thing to do for someone.
Oh, I think that's lovely. It's so meaningful as well, to have that. So again, anybody who's interested in obviously the poetry or commissioning side, I will put obviously all the links to all of your work and everything else underneath the videos. But
thank you.
I just think what a talent. And I really, really hope that in kind of, the next couple of years, well, we definitely want to see the theatre, and we definitely want to see Duffy Rose turn into something. I also wanted to just quickly show you as well, every week I go through the bestsellers, Sunday Times bestsellers list. And what I thought was actually very, very strange, well, not strange, but something that I thought was kind of meant to be this week. The first one on the list from the Sunday Times bestsellers was Lucas Jones. Now, anybody who doesn't know him, he's been in Star Wars 8, Episode 8. He's a London actor, but he's gone into poetry. So much so that one of his particular poems was actually featured by Stephen Bartlett on Diary of a CEO. Wow. And called it out. And since then, his poetry has boomed. He talks about it being very much more modern poetry, and talking about modern themes and things that obviously people want to kind of read about, especially the younger generation. But again, I thought it was quite nice that obviously from a young author's point of view, just starting his journey into poetry and so on. And I think even himself, when I was looking through his Instagram, he was really taken aback by the fact that Stephen Bartlett had kind of called out one of his poems and spoken about it. So I think from his point of view, I'd love to see more of his work. I mean, it's quite a short book. But again, some of them are really long, some of them are quite short. But what he talks about, I think, is very meaningful. But from a younger generation's point of view, it's not kind of like a Shakespeare or anybody's like that. But I think from Lucas's point of view, he's really trying to get across messages and things that he's experiencing and turning that into poetry. So, I couldn't believe it. First poetry book, and then obviously we were talking about your poetry. So quite nice there, one to watch. Interesting from his point of view as well. So he was born May the 19th, 1996. So he's only 29 years old. Wow. And again, I think when you actually start to look at authors, there's not many 29-year-olds that are on the bestsellers list. So I think that's a fantastic thing from his point of view. Yeah. He also starred in Get Millie Black in 2024 and Max in 2020. So I think there's going to be a lot more of him, really. I think he's going to really, now that he's obviously hit big time, I think he'll be going into that a little bit more. So the next thing I think from my side is names. Now, I don't know if you've heard about this book or the author.
No, I haven't.
It's very interesting, the concept that she's put behind it, really, because basically what she's saying is that the way that you name a certain child or person determines which direction they're going to go in life, which, I mean, I was kind of thinking about the theory and thinking, well, does a name really kind of put you in a particular bucket or, put you in a certain journey or direction? But it's interesting what she also says is, she also says that because it was set back in 1987's Britain, inspired by COVID-led confinement. So again, another author that was also looking at writing in COVID times. But what she was saying is that a single choice like a name can create lives, identity and fate. So I kind of understand what she's saying in that sometimes one particular action or one particular thing could lead you down a certain path. But I kind of still get to the point where I'm like, but does a name on its own doesn't necessarily determine that. So again, this was only on, this was very, very new to the Sunday Times bestsellers on Sunday. Haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I have had a look into kind of Florence Knapp and some of the theories. It's also a debut book. So again, I don't know whether she's going to then perhaps maybe in the future write more kind of controversial books. But interestingly, so I had to look this up because I wasn't actually sure. She started off as a seamstress, which I find quite fascinating. But she began blogging about English paper piecing. So I don't know if you know what that is. I had to Google it. So basically, they use quite small pieces of paper and then they kind of weave the kind of material over the top of it. So say you're making a flower. So she started initially blogging about what she was doing and how, EPP was a hobby and something she was doing. And then the more she was blogging, the more she then started writing about theories and so on. So it kind of, again, her hobby, her passion sort of led her into blogging to then writing something completely different and obviously hit the Sunday Times bestseller. So
wow. There is a link between sewing and writing, the creativity, isn't there?
Yeah.
And also if you think about the American quilting tradition where they weave their stories into their quilts, sort of old used clothes and bits of material from the past. So you can
Very
make
creative.
that link, actually.
And I think again when I did a little bit of research, her chapters do seem to weave into different areas. So it's definitely
nice.
Sometimes you hear people who obviously when they're on that author's journey, they studied literature or language, or they've always been a writer. Other people have gone down the creative route, like you said. So, I think that's fascinating. I just need a little bit more time to read it.
Not enough time.
Yeah, I know. And I think sometimes it's finding the time to then go, well, which book do I want to read? Because there's so many great ones that are coming out at the moment.
Yeah, it's golden age, isn't it, really, of writing?
Yeah, exactly. So on to David, and apparently you say it, David Soloy. He was actually the 2025 winner of the Booker Prize for the first, and I say Hungarian British to do so, but there's a little bit of a story behind it. A lot of newspaper articles at the moment are calling him Hungarian British, but actually his mother was Canadian, where he was born. He grew up in England and graduated from Oxford University. So very, very clever man. But he lived in Hungary for 15 years. He now, however, lives in Vienna with his wife and young son, and he writes about life as a physical experience. So his book, even if you read the first chapter, is very, very interesting. Talks about a 15-year-old boy who obviously goes to Hungary, finds himself very much, I wouldn't say in solitude, but it was very much, he found it difficult to kind of fit in, and was almost kind of taken under his wing by his mum's best friend. I won't go into too much more detail, but it becomes quite saucy. He talks about it from a male point of view and some of the things that obviously happened in his life. And the nice thing as well is that it unfolds over 10 chapters. So there's only a short amount in here rather than some of these books have sort of 20 odd. but it's basically each chapter is 1 week or 1 month of a particular event that happened in his life. But it also reflects life between bridging Hungarian and British cultures. It's actually his 6th novel. Now, I'd never heard of him before, but each one has done extremely well. And if you do start to read it, a lot of people say that it relates to Shakespeare's Hamlet. So again,
from a look at the moment, isn't it? Yeah.
So again, I mean, I think, and he's got so many, recommendations, so many people. Yeah. So for an author I hadn't actually heard of, sounds very exciting, sounds very good. There are so many newspaper articles about him. He's in The Guardian, he's in the Sunday Times, and they all talk about what an awesome author he is and how he really just kind of puts a lot of emotion and a lot of descriptive context into it. So I'm actually going to be taking this on holiday with me to read, because
it's a great title, actually, isn't it? I love the title.
Yeah, and do you know what? Quite a different cover, because so many people at the moment have like a picture, and then just read, kind of the text over. So one to watch at the moment, and I'm super pleased that's on there. So I'm also going to be talking about Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. Again, another author that I hadn't necessarily heard of, but it's the prequel to Divine Rivals. I don't know if you've heard of her at all or any of the books, but you can read it alone, but it helps if you read them together. It's set 600 years earlier in Cambria, and it starts to reveal a world where gods walked among mortals. So if you're into kind of, sci-fi, into some of the kind of more fantasy books, she actually has, I did read the first chapter, she actually has a really nice way of depicting things and talking about things. She has an incredible imagination, almost like a Rebecca Yarros and, some of the other authors out there. I won't tell you too much about it, but basically it follows the goddess Matilda and the mortal Vincent. They communicate through dreams before meeting in the waking world. It's split into 5 acts, but it spans decades. So again, a little bit like how David has kind of, pieced it or kind of taken each piece together. It actually only has 5 parts. So again, one to watch. I'm not normally a kind of a reader of fantasy, but this particular one, people are talking about how great she is as a writer. So I'm super interested.
Beautiful cover.
Yeah, and even inside,
that would attract my attention straight away.
It's absolutely beautiful. But interestingly enough as well, because I like to talk about the authors, she was a past librarian, so she obviously clearly has a love and a passion of books and writing works. She was a dude ranch worker. Now, I actually had to Google this because I wasn't sure what a dude ranch was.
We're learning a lot, aren't we?
I know. And it's fascinating. So many of the kind of the backgrounds, because you hear about the story, but not necessarily the author behind it. So she worked on that for many, many years. She met her husband, Ben, and were high school sweethearts, which I think is fantastic. She now lives in northeast Georgia and was the eldest of 6 children. So maybe, she obviously had, 5 other siblings. She thought, I'm going to invest my time in books and reading to get me away from this crazy house. But her first book that I mentioned, Divine Rivals, actually sold 100,000 copies almost instantly. So again, I think, if this does as well as the first one, she could be a very, very good one to kind of
look out for.
Yeah, definitely. But like you say, I mean, your son will probably appreciate this. The design and everything that goes into covers is just
important.
Absolutely,
well, I think it's important.
You've got so many books that you're trying to compete with. It's like, how do you stand out? How do you become quite catchy?
Yeah.
So just 2 left. This one, I was intrigued about this more than anything else, because I saw Bear Grylls and went, oh, Bear Grylls. You think of him as, action adventure,
action man.
And I'm going to go into it for anybody who doesn't know the extent of what an incredible human being he is and all the things he's achieved. So this is basically, he's rewritten, I wouldn't say he's rewritten the Bible, but he's told the Bible story from a perspective of being more, it's from the perspective of 5 people that are eyewitnesses. So it kind of goes through, and just so that I don't forget, it is from Mary, Thomas, Peter, John, and Mary Magdalene's point of view. But what he's done is he's kind of put an adventure spin on it.
Okay.
So it's almost like, well, here's the story of the Bible, but actually we're going to throw in the adventure behind it, more of the experience and so on. So the book has obviously a feel of like the Bible, but also inside, and it's got things like maps. It kind of takes you into the story itself. It also goes back to like the original things like the actual
the Psalms
and the kind of the verse and everything else. So it's really well put something. Yeah, he's been really important too. But he actually said that if he only wrote one book, this would be the book. He's actually written a lot of others, but if this was the one book, this would be it. So basically, he retells Jesus' life through 5 eyewitnesses, but he creates a unique adventure-style Christian narrative. And again, if you look up Bear Grylls, he talks about how he very much believes in kind of the Christian path, and it's really important to him around religion. It's written with short, punchy chapters with cliffhangers and a thrilling pace, and it should appeal to readers who enjoy adventure and fast-paced storytelling, just like his survival shows. But I thought it would actually go really undeserved. So, I mean, if I didn't mention the full piece about Bear Grylls, so we've obviously seen him and we love him on, TV programs, but I didn't realise exactly how many things he's achieved, which is incredible. His name is also not Bear Grylls. His little sister called him that when he was born, calling him Bear, but his name is actually Edward Michael Grylls. He served 3 years with the 21 SAS Regiment. He broke 3 vertebrae in 1996 parachuting in Zambia, where he actually fell 16,000 feet. But not only that, 18 months after that, he then summited Mount Everest at the age of 23. So not only did he break his back, he then went back up a mountain. He's set multiple world records. I think one of them was the amount of people in a hot air balloon, I think dinner, something crazy. He was the youngest Briton to climb Amadablam, youngest chief scout at 35. He's written 15 other books. He owns a private island off the Welsh coast. As a teenager, he learned to skydive and earned a black belt in karate. And he also speaks English, French, German and Spanish.
Goodness me.
I wonder if he's written any other books in any other languages. But I was actually really surprised by this because it was a very different spin on writing. And I'm actually fascinated to read, even if it's a little bit of this.
I'll be reading it, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a nice gift to give to someone as well. It's so beautifully put together.
It's a lot of, like you say, a lot of thought that it's kind of like the traditional piece, but then he's kind of put a new piece on it. But last one. And then the last one. So what we tend to do is Emily Henry, every week we have a spotlight author, and it's normally anybody who's listening out there says, I want to hear more about this person, or this person keeps cropping up. Can we have her feature? I'd love to obviously have her in the studio, but obviously she's in America and very, very busy at the moment. But Emily Henry, she keeps popping up at the moment. On Netflix, People We Meet on Vacation has just come out and is being kind of advertised here, there and everywhere. But what I also wanted to do is, this is a special edition, and I just want to take a little bit of time to appreciate all of the work that has kind of, it's just beautiful.
Again, it's a collector's piece, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Lovely.
It's not just a book, it's something that, people will just collect. It's I wouldn't say it's a chick flick, but I think it's a really good kind of, again, modern, romantic love story, full of adventure. I'll let you watch it on Netflix, obviously. But what I wanted to say about Emily Henry as well is she was born May 17th, 1991. She returned to Cincinnati after college, where she became a full-time writer and proofreader as of 2016. But she has now, as of 2026, sold over 10 million copies. And again, she's very young, but her books are doing incredibly well at the moment. So this is definitely one to watch. I want to read this before I actually watch the Netflix. But yeah, I just want to say she keeps popping up all over the place. She's written multiple books and they've all done extremely well. So Emily Henry, one to watch, literally one to watch.
Fantastic.
So that kind of brings me to the end. I just want to say thank you so much for being in the studio today. Anybody who wants a copy of Delphi Rose, I will put the links down. Please have a look at the poetry side as well. I'll put that down there. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Please look for the next episode coming soon.